And we are live. Welcome everyone to technically it's episode 10 of the Writer's Block podcast, but this is no ordinary edition. This is a special edition. We have Nick Macon, one creators behind MakinGames, and they're working on this game that we all have been anticipating called Raging Justice. And Nick, I just want to say welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And I would like
Hi.
for you to introduce yourself. Tell us about your project and about making games and the reason and the reason behind the name of making games. Because I
So,
think it's important
That
for
was
people
quite
to know
good, yeah.
that.
so yeah, I'm Nick Macon of Making Games. So yeah, the reason we're called Making Games is my surname, but it just works as a name. Making Games is myself and my wife. We basically run the company, and we collaborate with a few of the guys on making our game, which our game is Raging Justice. Raging Justice is a retro-inspired kind of nostalgic throwback to the arcade heyday of the early 90s, late 80s of games such as Streets of Rage and Double Dragon. It's trying to bring that kind of gameplay to a modern console. So it's made to look great on a HD screen. It's going to have a great surround sound system for the audio. It's trying to feel modern, but feel modern, look modern, but have the kind of nostalgic feel to try and make it play like a game that you remember games playing. So a number of games, it's a scroll and beat 'em up, so it's inspired by games such as Double Dragon and Streets of Rage, Final Fight, games like that. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it play like people's memories of those games. So people's memories of when they were 8, 9, 10, or what have you, playing it in the on their console at home, or going to the arcade and seeing the what I used to call the IMAX experience or the cinema experience for video games, which is the arcade. What those games are to people like me in our memories. So it doesn't necessarily play like an old game if you compare them side to side, but it plays like people's memories of those old games. I think I've waffled on all that.
No, no, that's fine, man. I've been checking out the trailer. It does bring me back to the those days of. I'm a rager myself. I don't know how bad I was as a kid, but to this day I still rage. And I want to say bravo on what the game looks like. It looks awesome in HD. The characters really pop out of the screen, and that's what makes me, I guess, so intrigued to play this game. But it does look awesome, and once again, I just want to say congrats on the green light. This the green light. You guys got the green light last year.
Yeah, we went through Greenlight soon after we announced Xbox with Idea Xbox, and then a few weeks later we decided to push on to get through Greenlight because we wanted, as soon as we release, we want to release as far and wide as we can. So we
Yes.
didn't want to be kind of get through onto the Xbox and then have the hurdle of Greenlight and then have the hurdle of this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So we want to release as wide as we can, as quick as we can. When it comes to consoles, we're Xbox One at launch. Other consoles we're still working out details on. They won't be at launch though. But yeah, we're going to be on Steam, so that's PC, that's Mac. We'll even be on mobile and tablet as well. We want people to play this game. We don't. I'm not fussy how you play it. I want you to be able to play it.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's a good way of looking at it. Luckily, I'll probably be picking it up for both. And speaking of launching, when are we going to finally get our hands on Raging Justice?
Well, we're still just. I mean, I've said this a number of times in the past and on Twitter. Is we've only got a little bit left to do. We've got just the last few bits of polish and tweaking and replay and just getting the gameplay just tweaked to be just so, or at least to feel just right and balance just right. Well, unfortunately, that can take a lot of time, and development Raging Justice, it's a part-time endeavor. We've got full-time jobs, we've got family, we've got other things that kind of pull us away from the joy that is game development. So it slows things down. So at this time, we don't have a final date, but I want it out soon. I want it out in people's hands. Releasing the game won't be the end of it. I mean, I've got plans. I've got plans for update this, update that, and extras on here and there. And the other word, because games, they don't finish anymore. You don't release a finished game. You release something and then you tweak it. You've got the opportunity. Again, it's a modern game ethos of being able to bring something more to it as people play it, to be able to enrich the experience with either alternate modes or extra characters, extra levels. I've got ideas. I mean, I've got a little book which, whenever I have an idea, I write it in, and that
Yeah.
book's overflowing with things that I could do just for Rage and Justice. So rather than put everything in for the launch, I've got a number of things I'm going to hold back for updates and stuff, just so we can get the game out sooner. So our plan is this year. Our plan is as soon as possible this year, but we don't have a date yet because we're not finished. Then our first update will be online multiplayer. At the moment, it's a local multiplayer game.
Okay.
You and your mates, you play the game in front of the TV. But again, bringing it back to this idea that it's a modern version of an old style. Modern games are online. You've got to be Xbox Live. You've got to be however else you play online. So we will be putting that in for an update, and then from there I've got loads of little ideas for just multiplayer battle modes, alternate modes, maybe more characters. So at the moment it's 2-player. We're thinking maybe we'll look at having like an alternate version of the main game where you can play maybe 4-player. We've got so many ideas. We just got to finish it. We got to finish release version 1 before we move on to anything else.
Yeah, definitely. I know before I bombard you with some other questions, I want to make sure that Abby, do you have any questions for our friend Nick?
Well, I'll let you get on to it first, because I think obviously, like, as a games development student, all my questions are on like the actual development side of it rather than the game itself. So I just want to know about like their roles and that kind of thing. Like, Dick, what is it you do? Do you do like the programming side, or you are, and what is it your wife does? That kind of thing.
So I'm the kind of the main developer. So I'm programming a lot of the design and setup stuff I put together.
Okay.
I've got a guy, Jay Howes, doing the artwork. I mean, he's a phenomenal artist. He's a 3D artist, and he's been making basically all the characters in Rage and Justice are 3D characters in Maya or 3ds, 3D Max, whatever it is. One of those, whichever one he uses, he models up the characters and then he renders them out to sprites to give that kind of really old school feel to it, yet looking modern because it's high res graphics, and tweaks things with motion blur and stuff like that. So I'm lucky to have a guy doing that, Jay Howes. He also he designs the characters. So when it comes to a boss fight, he will send me here's a biker boss. Here's some moves. Let's put it together. Let's figure out how this. It's not probably the most the correct way if you were being taught how to do game dev, but we kind of almost like jam it in some ways. It's like he will throw me a character with a move set, and we'll say, oh, would it be cool if he did this or do that, and then try and gel them together to have kind of like a full-on boss fight or an enemy that you're impressed with. And then the other guy that we're collaborating with, Steve Burke, he does all the music, the sound effects, the whole composition. He's a really talented musician, which is, I mean, I'm lucky to have both him and Jay on board with it. So that's the development side of things. When it comes to making games, I'm one half of it, which I'm probably the development side of it. And Anna, my wife, she runs the business. She runs the social side of things. She runs the marketing. If it wasn't for her, you wouldn't know about Rage and Justice. I wouldn't be on this podcast with you right now. I would just be in a bubble making this game. I'm a very programmer. I'm not really that. I'm not really good at selling myself. I know I'm talking a lot now, but I'm talking about a subject I'm passionate about, so I can do that.
Yeah.
But actually, breaking the ice, that's not my forte. So, fantastically, Anna is great at that kind of thing, and she's the one that asks all the questions, talks to all the people, gets Rage and Justice noticed. And because of her, we got through Greenlight so quickly. She was, up on the Steam Greenlight page, talking to every comment we had, positive or negative. She just had a nice thing to say about them, and that helped kind of the feeling within the message threads, I think, for the game, and helped push us through Greenlight.
Yeah.
So you were speaking about the inspirations behind
I was literally just gonna ask that.
and I get this actually question comes from Doug. He's also from our writing team. He asks, what game was your favorite from back in the day?
Oh, my favorite. I mean, still probably one of my favorites is Street Fighter 2. I mean, I remember as a teenager when it first came out in the arcade, I would travel far and wide. And to be honest, I didn't have a lot of change to play it, so I'd actually just watch other people play it. And Street Fighter 2 was one of those arcade games where there was loads of bootlegging. There was lots of tweaks to it. There was the Black Belt edition, the Rainbow edition. You know, people changed things just a little bit here and there. So, yeah, I would go and just watch people play it and occasionally have a go myself. And from Street Fighter 2, I also developed a love of Final Fight. It's just Captain Special for me. Just never mind the games, just looking at them. Captain Commando, Final Fight. Oh, all the games from that era are just they're the things that I remember when I think of my formative years of wanting to play games and playing games. They're what inspired us to do Raging Justice. For J.R. Artist, he's got a really fond memories of a game by Konami called Vendetta. Yeah, Vendetta. Crime Fighters 2, I think it was called in Japan. Again, it's another scroll and beat 'em up of the same era, of the kind of like early 90s, late 80s, with lots of character, just lots of kind of pugilistic fun in it, where like with all arcade games, they have to grab you. You have to, after spending that quarter or that 20p, you've got to be engrossed in it if you're going to put another coin in there. So they have to be instantly fun, and we just want to make a game that has that kind of pick up and play, instant fun. We don't want you worrying about story. We don't want to have to explain things to you in a tutorial. We just want you to pick up the joypad, figure the controls out within 5 seconds, and get playing. So that's kind of a roundabout way of the things that kind of inspired us to make this. We originally started with the idea of let's make a quick game. I think I mentioned before we went on air, I've been doing this for a few years now, this game. It didn't turn out to be a quick game. We looked at, again, choosing games from that era, you think, oh, they're simple, they're simplistic games. We'll put it together, we'll get it out there, we'll hit the, I don't know if it's the iPhone Gold Rush or the Steam Greenlight Gold Rush, or all these developer Gold Rushes where you release anything, you'll make $1 million. We missed a lot of them because it just takes so long to make a game, especially when you've unfortunately a bit of a perfectionist like we are.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that, but we have to let this baby go at some point.
Yeah, and you spoke about like understanding that games you don't want games completely finished anymore, and some of us as gamers, as viewers or observers, some people are fine with it, and then some aren't, and we're kind of wondering, okay, well, why is this game finished? Do we need an update? How do you look at it? We know that you're a developer, but as a consumer, how do you feel about?
I want to be able to buy on day one a game that I can play through, and I feel that I'm happy with my purchase. So, although as I said before, when I release Raging Justice, I have plans for update this, update that, and trying to get things bigger and better, I still want to release for want of a better term, it's not a nice term, but a product that is complete, that when you buy it and you play it, you feel that you've got your money's worth for the money that you paid for it. You feel that it's worth what you shelled out for. And when I'm doing an update, it's almost like a bonus. It's like an extra thing that makes it even better. At least that's the hope. So as a consumer, I'm not particularly fussed on early access personally. It's not something that I feel comfortable with. I know it is a great idea for kind of opening up game dev to people, for people to see what games can be as they develop, and engaging with the community too. But something about that for me personally, it doesn't quite sit right with the way that I was introduced to the games industry. I joined in 2000, and we were all about console games that were on cartridges, games that wouldn't update, and you made a game and you made it finished. And that's kind of where, in some ways, I want Raging Justice to be finished, but I also know that if I keep saying I'm going to get all of this in there, it'll never be finished. I'd rather have kind of staged updates, and hopefully, if it sells well enough, some of these updates they won't be paid updates. I mean, adding multiplayer to it, I'm not going to charge somebody, as far as I understand it. I think that's something that you expect with your initial payment, but unfortunately, I haven't got the time to get that. Or I'm the only programmer on the team. I'm call me an idiot if you will. I'm not using Unity. I'm not using Unreal. I'm coding this. It's
Wow.
just an.
Did you build your own engine?
Sorry.
Did you build your own engine for it then?
I started off with an engine called Cocos 2D, which is an open source graphics engine for drawing sprites.
Yeah.
But from there, it's kind of twisted and turned, and it's kind of a lot different to what it was at the beginning. So I'd say yes, I own the code base that I'm running on now. It's pretty much I've touched every last part of it. And it's foolhardy.
Well, especially for an indie company. Like, obviously, a lot of people do just like Unity's fantastic software and all that, but I think for an indie company to take that leap to do all that themselves that's impressive. It really genuinely is.
It's something that one of the reasons for doing this game is I enjoy doing this game, and I enjoy programming. I enjoy having that kind of control on things.
Well, sorry.
Go on.
I was just going to ask then, kind of off that question. Really, then, obviously, you're saying that you have different jobs between, you and your wife, obviously different commitments. So really, my question is then, like, why did you decide to get into obviously making this game? Like, where did the idea come from to think, do you know what, I'm going to go out there and make a game that I'm going to sell to everyone?
So myself, Jay and Steve, the artist and sound designer, we used to work at Rare. We were there for probably about 10 years. We had great time at Rare. We worked on games like Cameo and Perfect Dark Zero, which is not as good as the original Perfect Dark game. But we worked on all those, and we enjoyed ourselves. But we got to a point where we weren't really necessarily enjoying making we weren't making things for ourselves so much anymore.
Yeah.
The games industry, teams grow. That's what they do. I mean, it gets bigger, and you become a part of a machine. And it was just, let's do something that we own. Jay had recently made an iPhone game with another guy that we know, and he really enjoyed. In fact, Steve made the audio for that Sky Smash game. It was a great game at the beginning of the iPhone, and they enjoyed having that kind of complete ownership and that kind of ownership, the kind of feeling of we've made something. And I wanted to basically make a game as well, and the pair of them came up with me, and we came up with the idea of a scroll and beat 'em up because, as we said before, it's the kind of game that we all used to play. We looked in the charts on the iPhone at the time, and Streets of Rage, the emulator version, was still rides high in the charts today. It's not necessarily a very good version of it, but it's still there. So there's an appetite for this kind of game, and we just wanted to make something for ourselves as much as anything that we can say that's me, and that's us, that's our game, and we don't have to take it through meetings. We don't have to go and pitch it to people. It's just me, my computer, them and their computers, and we can make this game. There's nothing holding us back. So we just wanted to kind of shrink down from being on these AAA titles to kind of an indie game. What a number of people I think who have moved out of AAA now into indie games have done. They just want that kind of ownership, that kind of, this is me, this is my game. I'm visible because it's me.
That's cool. That is cool. Just on a side note, Cameo was like my favorite game in all of 2005. So if you've worked on that game, you have an automatic gold star in my book. That was my favorite game.
All three of us worked on that. Steve did all the audio and music and everything for it. Jay did a fair few of the backgrounds and I think some of the monsters, and I did when I started on Cameo. I was just a junior programmer, but I did probably 2 or 3 years on Cameo, and I did some of the controls, how the animations blend together, and how some of the characters move. I learnt my craft on that game, I would say.
Wow. That is awesome. That is awesome. And the thing is, you spoke on like now the independent scene has, I think it's always been around, but it kind of sort
Yeah.
of just blew up over the last, I want to say maybe 5 6 years. It just grew like out of control. And
Yeah.
the good thing, I guess, some people look at it a certain way, but you express having something that you own, and that must be, is that like a pro of being an independent developer, just making what you want, like versus
It it is definitely. I mean, that's probably the thing that draws me to it again and again. To finish this game is like, it's my game. It's a game that I can make, and nobody's turning around and saying, "Oh, I don't like this bit. Oh, change the color of that. Oh, we're going to cancel this and we'll change it for a kart race." So nobody's doing that, and it's nice to have the final say on things. It's scary as hell. Don't get me wrong. It's not something for the faint of heart. I'm bricking it for when I actually release this and people can sit and play it, and then I read all the comments, and then I go and cry to a vodka and coke. But it's that's part and parcel of it. It is such an exciting thing to do. It really is. I mean, we're lucky enough to have taken Rage and Justice to a few like game shows in the UK. We took it to EGX, which is one of the biggest ones. And if we've got a few others lined up, and we've taken it and we've had people play the game, so I've got a pretty good idea that people will enjoy the game, especially the kind of people it's aimed at, for want of a better term. I mean, it's a game that anyone can pick up and play, but when we've got it sitting there playing on a machine and people are walking past, you can see it's just like, that person played these type of games. That person knows what we're doing here. They're drawn to it, the people who have played Streets of Rage or Final Fight or those kind of games. And surprisingly for me, a lot of the younger generation, when they come up and play it, with most of them without any kind of background in the games of the 1990s, because they're 20 odd years ago, they get it. They play it and they just go, oh wow, this. I mean, sometimes they try and play a bit too much, or is it PvP, where they just fight each other instead of fighting the enemies. But hey, they're having fun. They're having fun.
I want to say you literally just took the question right out of my mouth. I was just going to ask you, because obviously we know who the game would appeal to. Those of us who play, Streets of Rage and love those games, it's obviously the appeal is toward them. I was going to ask you, did you feel there would be any issues trying to also to appeal to the newer generation who obviously don't know about those games that we played, back when we were younger? But you took the question right out of my mouth, so that's great. That's great. I'm glad people of a younger generation can appreciate what this game is for and what it stands for, and where where it's kind of built from.
I honestly thought that the only people that will be interested in this are people like me, people who have a fondness of this genre. And to be honest, that's what I was aiming at when we started this. But as I say, the kids, they play it, they get it. You don't have to think too much to play this game. We're trying to put in strategy in terms of the way the enemies fight, various things that choices of weapons to use. Can you pick things up and use them, and they'll break, and choose which enemies to beat up. And we've got things like you can arrest baddies if you kind of stun them, and little things that can add. Strategy makes it sound much more than it is, because it is ultimately an arcade game, but adds a bit more than just kind of a button masher. But yeah, because you don't have to sit through a long-winded tutorial, you don't have to kind of think too much when you first pick it up. You can just play it. Kids get it, and it's great.
And that's awesome, because there aren't really many games out that really point to, that actually puts us back in those heydays of beat 'em up games. There aren't very many games besides, the playing emulators, things like that. There aren't any new games that brings us back to that time in gaming where it was just great. You pick up a controller and you just beat them up. I miss those games. It seems like this is one of the few games that is coming out that actually brings us back to that great time in gaming.
That is exactly what we're pushing for. I mean, even from the style of the graphics, as I said before, they are 3D characters that have been rendered out to sprites, to images, and that's the kind of to hark back to a time when, at the kind of the end of the 16-bit era, pre-rendered sprites were the next big thing. Up until the PlayStation came along and said, no, 3D. 3D itself is the next big thing. But you had games like Killer Instinct and Donkey Kong Country. These games, and possibly even things like Clay Fighter, where they were still images, but they were 3D characters that were put into still images. And then they were made into a 2D game with this kind of cross between 3D and 2D graphics. And we're trying to almost work on an alternate timeline where people were, this is the future. We're going to make games like this. What would you be making today? If kind of, playing Donkey Kong Country and having recently played Streets of Rage, someone said, we've hit the pinnacle of video games. We're not going to make anything different now. We're trying to make, what would you be doing 20 years' time if that was what happened?
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot all about the Clay Fighters game. Oh my, that was one of my favorite games. But yeah, I forgot how they and wondered how they did that. But that makes a whole lot of sense.
Think Clay Fighter was more like the Mortal Kombat style of take pictures or take video and then take frame by frame. But you still had to cut it out. You still had to make a sprite, a single kind of image from those characters.
Yeah. Now, we were speaking earlier before we went live, and you also you want to get the game out as soon as you can, but you understand there's stuff that you have to do. Now, you're probably in a point because you've been working on this game for a couple years to the point where you're like, well, when we finally get it, it's brand new, but to you it's like, finally, like I'm sick of this. On to the next. So my question to you is though, when it comes down, when you're in a position and you're like, okay, I'm ready to release the game. Do you think you plan on just putting it out there, or do you have like sit back and like, okay, what's the best time to release to maximize on what I can possibly do?
I mean, in terms of the kind of the release plan, the business side of things, I don't want it to go into a vacuum. I don't want to release the game and it to be just ignored.
Yeah.
And because I've got a day job, because we're kind of working around steady incomes, we are kind of looking at releasing it when we feel is the best time for the game to do as well as it can. Hopefully it's as soon as we can. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want to be sitting on a finished game for months. I want this out as quick as we can, but I want it out after we've been able to kind of hype it up a bit more maybe, or get it out to some people to play it to help hype it up. We're not going to rush it out, but we're not going to sit on it forever. We need to get it finished. And as I say, it's like it's not going to stop there. I might have a little bit of a break when it's launched, but I've got to come back and add more to it. As I said before, I've got so many things that I want to add into the game, and they're just alternate modes. They don't change the main game, the Streets of Rage cartridge kind of. They don't change that, but they just add more to it. So as I said before, I think online multiplayer, brawl modes, arena fights, where it is possibly player versus player, alternate modes with more characters. There's so many things that we could add to this, and I want to keep the game going as long as it's popular, really, or it continues to sell. I'm not going to sit and work on this forever if there's only like half a dozen people have bought it, but I have so many thoughts of some of these things. Maybe I'll take on for assuming again it does well enough for a sequel, and try and make a kind of Rage Boosters 2 or some other game in this kind of that we can take our experience on making a scroll and beat 'em up, make the next one, make the kind of an improved sequel or some such. I think we're just gonna get this out, work on making it as good as we can, and just see what the future brings with it, really.
One thing for sure, you said by hyping it up, we at Hard Knock Gamers, most of us, majority of us, if not all of us, we were gaming during that era of when these games were great. And trust me, you'll have no issue getting some hype up from us, because we are all excited for this game. This is our type of game. This type of game brings us back to our childhood. Like I said, when gaming was great. So no worries there. We got you. We got you.
Thank you very much.
The support on Steam also is like heading in the right direction. So you do have a lot of supporting people back in this game. So people waiting. I was reading through the comments and then the support that, and it passed the green. It got green lit. I can't even say
Yep.
I don't want to say the wrong word, but it does have a great deal of support as its current state. Definitely are looking forward to seeing something new from it. Are you going to be attending any gaming event this year to show the game off, or do you plan to have the game out before any of the events?
Um, we may go to one or two this year, but the main focus right now is to just try and get this game finished, try and get it done, so that when we do take it to events, it's not kind of explaining the next step. It's like, okay, this bit here will be this little bit better, or we've got these ideas that we haven't quite. I want to be able to take a near, if not finished, near finished article to these shows and help drum support and get people playing it. But yeah, I really want to finish it right now. I mean, I'm excited for getting people playing it, but I also, when you've worked on something this long, you sometimes you do want to see it out. You do want to kind of let it fly the nest. It's been here long enough, hidden behind these walls.
Yeah, definitely. And then there was another question I have for you. Now, the game, right as it stands now, the game currently doesn't have online multiplayer, but that is something that you, if depending on the success, you would definitely be more than happy to try to add in. How many players does it support locally?
Right now, we're looking at the main story mode will be 2-player. I have tested out 4-player, but we don't really have the characters yet, because one of the things that's one of the drawbacks of the size of our team and what have you is it takes a lot of time to get the character to the quality that we have in there. It's almost like 3 or 4 months of hard work to get a character modeled up, and then initial animations and so on and so forth. So for launch, or at least for the main kind of story mode, it'll be 2-player locally. I'm tempted. I've programmed it in a way that would support 4, but it doesn't fit with the story. We would have to use kind of an old way of doing things, of kind of color swaps, where you would have, an alternate costume color for the characters if I was to go with 4 players. But it's something that we're considering. Maybe that'll be our first update, because it effectively would support it now, but I haven't got time to go through and test it all. I need to get the main game finished, and it'll be 2-player definitely at launch. I mean, it's drop in, drop out. So you pick up a controller, you press X, you're in the game. You can choose your profile on Xbox or whatever, or back out and you just appear as a guest. We just want people to be able to pick up and play and kind of get into the game and play 2-player.
Okay, and so any thoughts of online co-op?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's the core of the game is co-op. So when we go online, it will be the same as it is locally online. You'll be playing 2-player. Or, as I say, if we're able to support 4, maybe in an alternate mode, or like a director's cut mode one, where the story doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't really matter. You're just playing for the fun of it.
Yeah.
So we will look at 4-player. As I mentioned, we've got ideas for arena battles where possibly you're working together, possibly you're working against each other, and just have kind of a big brawl with wave after wave of enemy and see how long you can last. I don't know how many players we could support on that. We'll just look into it when we get to that stage, really.
Okay. All right. And I suppose because you're already working on it, how do you determine when you're done with the game? Because when you were planning this game, you have point A, you have point B, and then this is where we're going to be. When do you decide, like, you know what, I'm done?
Oh, that's I could tell you in a few months' time. Right now, I've got no idea. I've got a list of things that I feel we can't push out for an update, things that have to be in there for this kind of, as I said, this cartridge version, the kind of the initial, this is the release, this is the full game.
Yeah.
I have a list I've got to do there. I don't know how long it'll take to get through those. I'm hoping it's not too long. There's not a huge number of items to do on that. But the only problem when it comes to time is my time is kind of divided up in so many different ways right now. We've got a newborn baby, I've got a day job, I've got everything kind of takes my time away from just the game dev side of it. So yeah, it'll be finished when it's finished, and I'm hoping to, whatever, that it's finished soon, because as much as I'm enjoying developing it, as much as I'm enjoying getting this past that last bit and feeling the improvements as it all comes together, I do have the kind of I want it out, I want it done. I think I've said that once before, maybe.
Yeah. I'm looking at it, and you can pick up weapons off the street, garbage cans, bats,
Yep.
vehicles that appear.
There are vehicles. There are two ride-ons, rather than vehicles. So, well, on one level there's a tractor, wrecked tractor. You can get in that, and you can just ride around knocking people over. It's kind of in some ways, it's almost like a homage to. I don't know whether you played back in the day Golden Axe, where you were able to get on the dragons or on the monsters. It's kind of like something like that. It's a little bit of fun where you just jump on a tractor, you race around, you knock everybody over. We spent months getting that working, and then realised we've got one of these in the entire game. What are we doing? We spent months working on it, and it just happens once. So we came up with another ride-on, which we will throw in later, which is a ride-on lawnmower. So you mow down your enemies.
Okay, and it looks like anything can be like, I see that there's like fire hydrants and garbage cans and stuff that you can interact with. That's in like some of the levels, like that characters can be thrown into.
We're trying to anything that's kind of in that middle distance of the playfield. We want it to be something you can either pick up and use as a weapon, something that you can somehow interact, knock down, smash. We just want it to have that kind of, if it's there, you can do something with it. If it's not there, it's obviously not there. We just want it to make it as kind of, you can play it with just weapons if you want to go and pick up the weapons and hit people with baseball bats. I mean, as far as the game logic's concerned, you don't kill anybody, you only knock them out. You can knock people out with baseball bats or with a sledgehammer, which I think in real life it would be more than a knockout, but any of the weapons you see in the game, of which I think there's about 15 or so different things that you can pick up and use. Possibly more, I don't have a final number.
Yeah.
And yeah, just try and make it so you can just, it's fun. You pick up a weapon, you pick up a baseball bat, then you see there's a sledgehammer, you go and pick that one up because it's bigger. Then you see around the corner there's a shotgun. It's like, okay, I'm going for that.
And now this game, like, it's inspired by like some classics, and those classics. The thing that was important with games back in the day were boss fights, something that we lack today. How would you describe some of the boss fights in Raging Justice?
We're trying to make the boss fights again hark back to that era. So boss fights, we're trying to make them bigger, more exciting than kind of your normal goons or grunts that you meet along the level. We're trying to make them have phases and attack patterns, things that you can learn, you can see. You think, he's about to do this, so I know how to dodge them. But make you scared of them. You've got to be afraid of the bosses. You've got to try and I want to stay away from you. We want to try and make it exciting. We want to make it fun, and we're trying to make it scary but fair. I mean, I don't want the boss fight to be, the boss can't be damaged for the first 3 minutes. You just have to survive, or 4 minutes like they did on Battletoads. I want it so that you can actually beat them fairly, but they are bloody scary. That's the idea. That's the idea we're putting behind them. So they're big, they're beefy, they've got special moves that you have to dodge out the way, or you have to throw something at them, or just avoid them in some ways while they're doing that special move, and then come back and retaliate with some weapons or with a bin or whatever you've picked up off the street.
That nice balance. That is a nice balance. Now, is this a game that like when you're playing, because you said it's hop in, hop out pretty much. So if I was playing by myself, am I always with a player? Will it be like a CPU, or am I physically by myself? And then when another player joins, it's another player, or is this like either or?
At the moment, it's set up so that you would play single player. It would be just you on your own, and if there was another joypad connected, the other half of the screen, it would be saying press start to join. So again, it's kind of have that arcade feeling about it of, insert a quarter and play the game. You can just drop in and join in. I could, because the way it's been written, the game that can have AI controlling the players. I could make it. I haven't considered it yet. It's a good idea to have a look at. Is possibly having 2-player where one CPU controller. I look at that as possibly as an option, really, and I haven't thought about that one.
Only reason why I asked, I figured, wait, maybe a boss fight is maybe beneficial if you have two people like distract him while
Oh yes.
he's coming at me, and then you can go and shoot him or something like that. So I didn't know if you had any boss fights where you kind of like it would kind of suck if you were by yourself. It could
They're
have
definitely harder. It's definitely easier when there's two of you.
Yeah. Now is this game? Do you have this game set up in just like modes, or is like you just start the game is the game you just start? Is either going to be one player or two player, or is it going to be set up in where you have different modes?
As when you first turn it on, the whole keeping it kind of instant and accessible, I want within 3 presses of your A button or X button, you're in the game and you're able to play it. So the main kind of menu system and what have you will be pushing you through to that kind of arcade experience of get you in the game quickly so you can play it. The idea is that there will be alternate modes that you can select through the menu should you want to, but if you boot it up, I want ideally inside of like as quick as it can bloom and load. I haven't timed it or anything, but I want from the moment you press launch on the Xbox dashboard or on your Steam launcher, I want within, I don't know, 10, 20 seconds for you to be there playing the game as quick as possible. And again, for me, that means the main mode that you'll be kind of filtered into is the story mode, the arcade mode, where you just play the game. I mean, there is a story to it. It's not a huge branching narrative-driven story, but there is a kind of a cheesy Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme style action film story to it of the mayor's been kidnapped, you're in the wrong side of town, blah 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 blah, go beat up baddies. Obviously we put a lot of thought into that story and it will probably win prizes. But we're as a game, we're trying to push people into it as quick as possible. The main mode is straight into the story mode, straight into the play, and it's straight into co-op should you wish to play multiplayer. As soon as I've got other modes to add, there'll be an option in the menu.
Okay, all right. Abby, you have anything for Nick?
I was just really asking more on like I don't know. Basically, I just want to say like, have you had any problems then through the whole development that you kind of came into, and how you've dealt with that then, or has it just been smooth sailing? Which if that's happened, then I'd be generally impressed.
I mean, it hasn't been smooth sailing mainly because it's taken so long. There's not been anything where it's been a big kind of blocking problem. We've had a few technical challenges here and there, such as a year and a bit ago when we decided to pitch to Idea Xbox to get on that. I needed to port the entire game from working on what was effectively an iPhone app engine to a multi-platform C++, and then port that again to Xbox. So it was a few weeks' work, shall we say, to do all that. But other than the occasional kind of hiccup in that regard, we've not really hit any other major problems. I think due to the protracted development time, the biggest problem that we've hit is just motivation. It's just keeping going, getting forward slowly, trudging on, trying to get to that end goal of finishing and releasing. The one thing that's really helped push us along is the fact that it's an us, not a me.
Yeah.
So if my motivation's flagging, Jay will pipe up and he'll have, I've got some more artwork for you, could you put it in the game? And it's like, oh wow, he looks cool, I'll get him in right away. And that kind of peps me back up to get some development done, or some new sounds from Steve, or a new music track. And it's just between the three of us, we kind of egged each other on the development side. And now we're a business and Anna's running it. She also kind of eggs me on. It's like, look, we're on the green light now, let's get it done. We're talking on podcasts, let's get it done. Things that help with the motivation. That's something that, as I say, without being part of a group of people, I think the game would have died a death much a long time ago, really.
And there's always, especially when you announce a game, you show off a game for the first time, you get all this reception. I'm assuming you've got generally positive reception according to what it looks like on
Yeah.
Steam. Now, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we've had a pretty positive reception, which is great. Again, I think it comes down to if you see a screenshot or the trailer of the game, you can kind of your mind fills in the blanks, and you've got a lot of people have a good idea of the kind of game that it is just from that screenshot, just from that little trailer, and that helps kind of get over that initial hump. There's no kind of, oh, that looks novel, I'm not quite sure what it is, but that looks interesting. A lot of cool indie games, if you just saw a screenshot of that iPad classic Monument Valley, if you see a screenshot of that, you don't necessarily know what the game is.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a great game, but you can't kind of infer what it is from a screenshot, whereas with Rage and Justice, it is a lot easier for us to kind of sell the idea of a game to people because it kind of harks back to that nostalgic time. The flip side of that is people do start to have kind of preconceptions as to what they expect to see in it. So we've had people asking for boxing kangaroos due to Streets of Rage 3. We've had people asking for various things from other games that they remember that they associate Rage and Justice with. Oh, it's like a HD remake of Final Fight. Have you got a guy with swords in it? Have you got, so we do have a little bit of living up to do to a lot of people's preconceptions based on what they think the game could be, but we hope that we will please as many people as we can with it.
Now, how do you decide what came into mind where we know you want your game out, you want as many people to play as possible? How did the process come about? Like, okay, well, we're gonna be on Xbox with Idea Xbox, or we're gonna go to Steam, or we're gonna be on iPhone. Like, because you're pretty much working on this and you're putting it on different platforms. Is there an engineering reason where you can make the game and then properly get it to wherever you want, or how are you going about with the multi-releases?
At the moment, the plan originally, as I say, was we were a long time ago looking at an iPhone release, but then we realized as the game grew and became more and more of a kind of console-style game, so we need to hit up the people we used to work with back at Rare and at Xbox and see if we can get on this Idea Xbox scheme. And through some good belligerence and pestering, they took us on board and got us dev kits and got us up on there. And I spent, not last Christmas, but the Christmas before, that was my ported to Xbox holiday. And it's just, it helps with the three or four of us that are working on it, that we all kind of have a different machine that we use it on. So I play it mostly on the Xbox One dev kit. Jay plays it on PC, Steve plays it on Mac, and Anna will play it on the phone. So testing wise, I have to, as a programmer, make sure that each one of these continues to work and continues to perform as well as it can. So it's a little bit of overhead with that, but it also it's a good practice and habit to be in, because it will make it easier getting past that finishing line. The only problems between the platforms really that are going to kind of complicate things are things like achievements are different on Xbox as to Steam achievements, as to Game Center achievements or what have you. That's going to be the bit where it's like, okay, when we get to the point of finishing, we may have to pick one to focus on, get done, get that in the kind of the queue, and then move on to the next one to get those little bits done, and so on and so forth.
Now, how do you feel on like the UWP, the Universal Windows application platform that Microsoft has been rolling out with this new Windows 10 movement? It sounds like this would have been a whole lot easier on you had you had the option to do that.
Quite possibly, but we will definitely look into being part of the UWP kind of support, because we've got a touchscreen version of it. There's no reason why we can't work with the Windows Surface or the Windows phone, as well as like controllers and Xbox and keyboards and Steam and stuff. Hopefully it'll be relatively painless for us, because again we already run on Xbox. From what I understand, I haven't looked into the details of it, but the porting process from Xbox, from what I've heard, is supposed to be pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And we will definitely support it, whether or not it's the kind of platform that gamers will buy into. I imagine when it comes to PC sales, Steam is where it's at, and I think that will be the case for the foreseeable future, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems very popular. I don't think they're going to let go of that grasp anytime soon. But as far as the game, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely support any platform we need to get it out on. So, I would love to have you be able to buy it on your Xbox, play it on your Windows 10 tablet if you've got one, or on your laptop, or on a Windows mobile phone, or anything. I mean, I want it running on Android, I want it running on iOS, I want it running on everything and anything. And it would be nice in some ways if I could sell it to people the once and they would have it on all the devices, but I don't think that's going to be an option really with the way things are. So that's one of the things that I like about this Windows thing, is if you buy it on your Xbox, you get it on your Windows devices through the Windows Store for free, I believe. Or at least I think it's up to the developer or to Microsoft to make that decision on, but I think you can get kind of like what Sony do with their devices, this cross-buy.
Yeah.
I think that's an option. It would be nice for us to support that.
Yeah, that would be definitely awesome. And we just got a update that Microsoft are finally opening up their network, so to potentially to play with other platforms such as PlayStation and Steam. And what is your take on that? And as a developer, do you think this is a good idea?
As a developer, I think it's probably, at least for the short term, going to be really complicated to handle. But I think as a consumer that it's an excellent thing. I think this is it. I think it's going to put, if Sony don't say yes to this, it's going to kind of put them on a back foot. It feels in some ways it's almost the end of consoles as we know it. If something like this can happen, not in a bad way, in a good way. I mean, I would love from a consumer point of view for consoles to be like a DVD player. You know, you've got one, you can buy games and you know that they'll run, because that's the best thing about consoles. It's like I don't have to worry about compatibility. I plug it in, I know it'll work, and it'll be built into the machine I've bought there. It would be great if consoles worked more like a DVD player, so that you buy a console and then console games run on it. And maybe that's kind of my take on what I've read. I've got no inside information on it. From what I've read on this Universal Windows platform and opening up the network side of things, it just sounds like it's almost like an end game play for consoles could be a totally different experience to what they are today in the next 5 years' time.
It looks like it. You know, I love my consoles. I really do. So I mean, I can't imagine a life without them. But I don't know. Whatever happens, I hope it's for the better. But the idea of being able to play against people that are on PlayStation in the same games is cool. I've enjoyed we've had the option to do it with PC and consoles, but never really before console and console. So
yeah, it makes it simpler in some ways when buying a console. You buy the console that you want then. You don't buy it because your mates have got the PlayStation, so you buy the PlayStation, or your mates. Not everyone's got one of each. You know, so if you bought an Xbox One, it'd be great to be able to play with your PlayStation owning friends and still be able to play FIFA or Madden or Rocket League or whatever game that it is that you and your buddies want to play.
Yeah.
That, I think, is just going to be assuming that that's pulled off, that's going to be a game changer when it comes to consoles.
Now, other than getting the game released, what are your goals, your set goals that you have for Raging Justice? Once it's said and done, the game's out. What do you hope to see, or what do you expect to see as far as the game release and its success?
Well, I'm hoping for enough success for me to keep working on it for the foreseeable. Really, I've got, as I said before, I've got ideas. I've got things that I could quite happily make a sequel with, or I could make updates with. I'd like to. Some of the ideas are kind of unformed ideas at the moment. I'd love to spend a bit of time and like prototype a few of the ideas. And again, because it's in the same kind of genre. an idea that I've thought that I might try and do is maybe prototype them within Rage and Justice and release those as kind of. You're asking about different modes. I'd like to have possibly, whether this works or not, a kind of a prototypes page in the menu or something where it's like, okay, you can play this idea I've had of wouldn't it be cool if you played as the baddies and I'm just making something up here. You play as the baddies and the players are controlled by AI and you've just got to try and stop them.
Okay.
You're weak, you die really quickly. So then you switch to the next baddie and switch to the next baddie, and it's how quickly can you wear the player down? It's an idea.
That's an idea, but that was actually done. It was done in Perfect Dark.
Oh, the counter-op mode.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, you're probably the first person that would have got that reference if I'd have mentioned it. Because we worked on that on Pervert Zero. I don't know whether we actually got to release that one.
I was a big fan of the games. I've enjoyed Perfect Dark Zero, the original Perfect Dark, and I enjoyed Cameo Elements Apart. So I remember before the game came out and reading about that idea, I was like, "This is gonna be awesome." You know what I mean?
I don't know why people haven't done that since. Like, it's such a kind of almost simple idea.
Yeah.
You could make it like you could have nowadays. Why limit it to 4 players? You could have almost every of the enemy baddies controlled by somebody, and then when they die, they respawn as another baddie, and then the players are like equivalent. They're superhuman because they've got so much health, so much power. But it's just a different gameplay idea that I'd like to prototype, but it's not something that I know is going into Rage and Justice as it stands. So I would like to have a little play around with things like that and possibly put them in as just little gameplay tweaks to the game so that you can choose it and try this different mode, and if people enjoy it or if people try it, maybe that will form the basis of a sequel. Or
Yes.
Yeah,
because I mean, it sounds like you got a whole great deal of ideas for the game, and this is the ideas that won't make it to the final product. So it's like you pretty much have a platform for a sequel, depending on the success of the original game, which I'm almost certain this game is going to do what it needs to do, because it's a category, it's a genre that we've been missing for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody makes them like they used to.
Yeah, no. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I would probably get them on both platforms because I haven't had a game like this in a long time. Like I said, I can go back is to like Super Nintendo and Sega days where I've actually played a game comparable to it. So every time I watch the trailer, I'm like, oh man, it's like bringing it into the modern day and then adding the right mechanics, but keeping it where nostalgia still sets in, and kudos to you because so far you're doing an amazing job with the game.
Thank you.
I wish I had a release, but I definitely love to speak with you again. I will definitely keep in touch with you, especially around when the game when it's come close to release.
I mean, there was a chat. We'll happily give you a chat.
Yeah, this is a game that looks like it will do great on the streaming scene, like broadcasting on Twitch and whatnot. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I one thing that I have been doing the last few weeks is trying to stream some of my game dev. It's far from exciting, really, looking at a screen and me typing code. But I do have a little window of the game when I start it up and you get to see it crashing. It's the most unexciting stream ever. But I have spoke to a few people in the chat window on that.
Okay. And I think the other thing I wanted to mention is that the game now. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just asked where do you stream that? It's just we actually would be interested in watching that.
It's just on my Twitch channel, which is Nick Makin, NICMAKIN.
Look.
You know, it's not as I say, it's not the most enthralling thing. You know, you're not going to go there and see exciting gameplay or anything. But you know, twice a week, usually on a Tuesday or a Thursday evening when I get my time with the computer, I have a coding window up or editing the script. and then run the game, and you just see me run the game, and I've got a little chat window open, and I'm quite happy to chat people. And there's been a couple of items that have gone in the game because someone said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if this?" or "Wouldn't it be cool if that?" It's like, actually, it's not a bad idea. We'll have a look at that. It's a nice little thing to do. As I say, I don't expect to get many people joining me and lots of people being excited by it, but for the few people who are interested in game dev, they get to almost see behind the veil a little bit and see the game in its rawest state.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I myself am like visual art, but my partner's a programmer, so I know he definitely watched that.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I'll probably be doing some next Thursday, but yeah, it's
Okay.
Nick Making. It's the same as my Twitter handle.
Yep, I've just tagged you on Twitter.
Okay, and so if that's, I mean, I'm pretty much all set for what I wanted to ask you. Just wanted to get just a little bit more details behind the your title, the upcoming title. I know it's been in the works for a couple years, and I appreciate you expressing how it is because you're doing this pretty much essentially on your own. You don't have a are you guys gonna publish this game on your own?
Yeah, we're going to be self-published on everything that we publish on, at least initially. If at some point I'm sick of porting things and we want to get on another console, maybe we'll hand off the porting work to somebody else. But right now, the plan, because I enjoy the coding side of things, I will port it. It shouldn't. It's been written in a way where, because I've done multi-platform games before, I've got a good idea of how to separate things out, so it shouldn't be a huge, laborious job to port it to another platform. But it's a job. It's something that it could get to a point where it's like, I'll hand it off to somebody, they'll take a cut of the profits, and I'll work on the next feature or what have you. But initially, it's going to be self-published. It's going to be all our own work. It's just going to be us marketing and selling, and hopefully making a little bit of pocket money on this little game.
And let's say Raging Justice come out, and across all platforms, you manage, I don't know, to sell. Maybe you mess around, you sell 700,000, right? Between both the platforms. Are you still making the game part time after that?
Probably. I'm one of these kind of quite risk-averse type people. I like the fact that I get paid every month. I mean, it's one of those things that I like about having a job. As good as if it sells a couple of 100,000 or we put however much money in the bank from this, I still then have to hit the next game with as a hit. It has to. You're only as good as your last game when you're a small studio.
Yeah.
And if your last game doesn't do well, you're back on the on the job hunt. So, and at least my current plan is, stick with my full-time job, still do this as kind of like more of a labor of love. I don't want it to drag me down. I don't want the stress of it to get too much for me. Yeah. We've got a family, we've got a house, we've got a car, we've got these things where if I was out of work, they would be at risk, and I'd rather have the safety of a paid job and have the game development as kind of a passion and a hobby and something that I do because I love doing it, not because I need it to pay the bills.
Okay. That's a good answer, because like I said, the game making, it seems like it's coming it's something that you want to do and it's out of fun, and I guess that's why there's no stress on you to have this game out right now. You got your own timeline to meet, and the only timeline you have to meet is the timeline you set, and that's awesome. That's probably the best thing in the world, is working for yourself and like, okay, this is what I got to do next.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty good situation to be in. I could do with it being out, It would be nice to have that pocket money coming in to ease things through each month and what have you. But yeah, it's not the be all and end all.
Yep. And now, you've been in the industry for a while. You worked for Rare.
Yep.
You've been working on this game for a little while. Is this the game that you'll wanted to make, or are you there yet? Have you made the game you always wanted to make, or are you working on it now, or is this going to be your next game?
I mean, I always wanted to, even as a kid, make console games, and for me, the pinnacle would be making an arcade game. You know, a full cabinet with artwork on the side and my game in the middle of it. That would be the pinnacle for me. I've actually started talking with a few different people who make arcade cabinets to try and see if I can build, even if it's just for myself, a Rage Injustice arcade machine. So that in itself, that would probably be the pinnacle. That would be, you know, I've hit it there. Even if it's just sitting in my garage, nobody else is playing it, but I can put my money in it and I can play my game. I know I've hit it and I've made it.
Yeah, that would actually be. I was going to ask you. It's like, have you ever thought about going back to the OG arcade scene? Like,
there's a few companies I've followed on Twitter that when we hit the point of we've got a finished game, I'm going to start saying, hey, I know you make arcade machines. Is there any chance that you would be willing? I wouldn't necessarily want to. I wouldn't expect it to make money in any way from my point of view, but it would be so cool to have. You can go and buy a Rage Injustice arcade machine. That would be me. That would be that would be it.
Yeah, I've been and you know it's crazy. Like I was so happy to have a console because honestly, I've never did like decent on the actual arcades, so I always avoided them as a child. But that would be cool. I could picture this game on a legit arcade inside Dave and Buster's somewhere, or on like in one of the them throwback arcade stores that we have here.
Yeah.
Which are rare to find. And,
there's not many of them.
Yeah, not many of them. So and it's cool. Some of them we have in the mall that I have in town. It's the only mall you can go to that have it. They have like this complete like throwback store where you can find all the rare games from like the NES, Super NES, and Sega, Genesis, PlayStation 1, 64, and it's just like, wow. It's like I can imagine your game found in one of these stores, but I'm assuming you're only going to be doing digital distribution with this. At least
That's at least what we're planning on. I mean, somebody's pointed me into there's a company that does small scale production of kind of, you know, hard copies of like PlayStation games or PC games, and it might be that we look at something like that just as like a limited run. But yeah, I don't expect to have an in the stores game, at least not initially. It could happen. I mean, you could buy, you know, you can buy Terraria, you can buy Minecraft, you can buy all these things that originally were never going to be games that you could buy and you can buy them now in the store. So, I mean, I'm never going to be Minecraft. That was probably a bad example there, but you know, there are these games that are indie games that aren't big games that you can actually buy physical copies of, and I'll never say never. I would love to be able to walk into the store and say, "There's my game."
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even more so than previously when I've released games, because it is more so my game. It's me and two other guys. We developed this.
Now, I got two more questions for you.
Go.
This one is, there's plenty of developers, whether independent or big. Is there anybody that you wish you can work with to make a game that you like wish, man, if I could work with this person, big or small?
Well, I would love to have worked. Again, this comes back to harping on about arcade games. I would love to have worked at any of the big arcade manufacturers in Japan back in the day, whether it be Taisho, whether it be Capcom, Konami, Sega. The arcade machines, they were the experience. I would love to have worked. I don't know whether I would have been able to bring anything to their games, but to have that kind of, I worked on, you know, Outrun or you know, Afterburners. To have worked on something like that would be so awesome. Going to modern games, I remember when I first played the first Crackdown, I fell in love with that game. There was just something about it. I remember playing that and just thinking, I wish I worked on this game. But I was playing it, I thought, there's nothing that needed to improve on it from what I was playing. You know, I don't think I would have necessarily brought anything, but I would love to have Crackdown or Assassin's Creed 1 on my CV. That they would be games that I played. They're the kind of games that I love. You know, the modern games that I love. The kind of Crackdown, the Assassin's Creed, Batman Arkham, and Bayonetta and games like that.
And then my final question is reviews. How does like your game is already out? You've done submitted it to all tools ready to review the game. How does one feel the day that reviews are coming out?
Nervous, I think. I mean, people always say don't read the comments and also don't read reviews, but I do. And you can't help but occasionally take things to heart when they're not as polite as you think they should be. But I mean, even negative reviews, if you read them right and you understand where people are coming from, you can see what they mean. You know, that it'll be for me when I release this, it'll be nervous. I'll be kind of, oh, I hope that it's that, and I'll be kidding myself saying, oh well, as long as it gets at least I don't know, 5 or 6 out of 10, whereas I'll be actually hoping for 8 or 9 or what have you, and I'll be disappointed in anything else. But mentally, I'll be telling myself, as long as people like it, I don't mind. Yeah, it's going to be nerve-wracking those few weeks before release when people start reviewing my game. Yeah. But I mean, it'll be even worse if nobody reviews my game. So, you know.
That's true. Never thought about it.
You know, so somebody reviewing my game and not necessarily giving it a glowing review, they spent the time, they played it, and they found something from it that they thought was worthy of saying or writing, and that's great.
Yeah, there's been a great deal of games that came out that maybe haven't scored the best, but they hold a special place in people's heart as far as like, oh man, this is my favorite game. Yeah. And then you go and look at the review scores, the Metacritic scores of the game, you're like, really? But there's a lot of games that did that for me. Yeah. Some of my favorite games weren't 9s and 10s. They were literally 6s, 7s, and some of them were even 5s that I've enjoyed. So I try not to look too deep into the review score. Because it doesn't tell the whole story. And we all are different. Our likes are different. There's going to be people that love your game just for on nostalgia alone. You know? Yeah. And some people are going to love the game because it's just fun. You know, it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not of what just happened, but the fun factor is, I feel like we're lacking a lot of games that have the fun factor, and games, I feel like video games are in a point in time where they're taken too serious, and too many things have to be done for a game to be good versus a game to be fun. And I'm looking to be entertained when Rage and Justice releases.
Yeah, it's a great time to be alive when it comes to video games because it caters for everyone. But personally, I do see that there's too many of the worthy titles that get the clicks and the views, rather than the games that are games. You know, games in terms of they are just fun. They're just instantly, you just have fun with them. They're my kind of games. The ones where it's a gamer's game rather than a story-driven or narrative-driven game. No problem with those games. There's plenty that I've played and thoroughly enjoyed. But right now, at this point in time, I just want fun. I want to be entertained for 15 minutes, an hour, and come away with a smile on my face.
Hey, so that counts. Abby, did you have any questions for Nick before we let him go?
I think my only one question is basically I've been working starting up, not me personally, but our own indie games company. I'm going to be the visual artist on that. I really this is our very, very early stages, and we two have a big project, lots of ideas. But I think my question for you then, somebody that's got a company that's greenlit already and ID Xbox, what would you say then? Your advisement on new indie companies, people want to get into the industry. Do you know what I mean? What kind of tips and tricks have you got then that you would say definitely keeps on the right path?
First off, don't be over ambitious. Don't say you're going to make an MMO. Don't say pick something that you can do. Work to your strengths on that one, and always ask. Don't be afraid to ask. If you don't ask, you don't get, as the saying goes. I mean, don't think, oh well, I can't get on Steam because you can now. You can stick it on Greenlight and then keep pumping at that and telling all your friends and your friends' friends and so on and so forth, and apply for ID at Xbox. There's people get in. If nothing, I got in. It's not necessarily because I worked with them in the past or I knew them. It's because we were belligerent enough to keep talking to them. To be polite with them, to be to keep up a rapport with people.
Yeah.
We reckon we got through green light partly because Anna was every night replying to comments, talking to people, even the people who they were either trolling or they were saying things that were less than polite about the game. It's like, fair enough, the game's not for everyone. We appreciate your comment. Thanks for your input. Just being polite on them on something like our green light thing, we felt was just it turned everything around rather than making something negative. It always became more of a positive, and just try and show your passion. But in some ways, especially if you're looking at doing it as a business, remember it's a business.
Yeah.
You've got to, at the end of the day, if you want this to be your income, think about that as well as making the game that you want to make.
Yeah.
So again, that comes to the playing to your strengths and not biting off too much with making an MMO. Try and get something that you can get out, something that can start earning you, especially if you need the money or you want it to start growing financially into more of a stable thing, and get things out. Just don't give up until you really have to. God, that's so negative, isn't it?
No, I think that's good.
Love what you do. There you go.
But I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and of course, if you didn't catch it live, you can always hit rewind. You can check out Rage and Justice on it's on Steam. Greenlight. Well, it's already been approved, but if you want to take a look at this trailer, you can actually still go and search it up in Steam, or you can do it easier by going to MakinGames.com. That's MAKIN games.com, or you can check out the trailer once our article finished publishing on hardknockgamers.com, because I will be covering Raging Justice today in our interview with Nick Macon. So make sure you check out MakingGames.com to check out Raging Justice. The trailer is awesome, and check out our interview again on hardknockgamers.com. Nick, do you have anything you want to say before we log out for today?
No, I've said everything. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. You've watched a special edition of the Writer's Block podcast featuring Nick Macon of Making Games, and the topic was Raging Justice. As I always say, Xbox is the best box, and I am the best spot. Or good morning if you're on the other side of the globe. We are out.